woman's scream shatters the quiet apartment, raw and desperate. In the dim light of the hallway, Sarah stands, clutching her young daughter tightly to her chest. Her ex-husband, James, storms past her, his face contorted with rage and betrayal. His words are a blur of venom. "You'll regret this, Sarah. You think you're the one who gets to decide." The door slams shut behind him with an earth-shattering crash, and the room falls into silence. The sound of sirens echoes in the distance, a constant reminder of the chaos brewing just beyond their doorstep. Sarah's breath is shallow, her hands trembling as she holds her daughter close. "It's okay, baby. It's okay," she whispers, but the doubt in her voice betrays her. Her mind races, trying to make sense of the scene that just unfolded. In that fleeting moment, everything changes. The life she's built for her daughter, the world they've created together. Suddenly, it feels fragile. The weight of betrayal hangs thick in the air, and Sarah knows that the fight to protect her child is only just beginning. The morning after the storm, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, staring at a mug of coffee that had gone cold. Her daughter played quietly in the next room, unaware of the chaos that had unfolded the night before. She hadn't expected James to show up like that, filled with rage. As the reality of the situation sank in, Sarah realized the fight for custody was no longer about getting back at her ex. It was about protecting her daughter from the chaos he had left behind. He wasn't just an ex-husband anymore. He was a threat. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, but she blinked them away, refusing to let her daughter see the weakness she couldn't afford. She was stronger than this, she had to be. But the reality of the battle ahead was clear. James would stop at nothing, and Sarah had to be prepared for the worst. Her phone buzzed. Another message from her lawyer. The clock was ticking, and Sarah knew it was time to face her demons head-on. The confrontation with James was inevitable. Sarah had been avoiding it for months, but now she could no longer run. He showed up at her door unannounced, his face twisted in a mix of anger and smugness. "You think you can keep Lily from me forever?" James spat, his words dripping with venom. "You think you're better than me?" Sarah stood her ground, her body trembling with both fear and anger. "I don't think I'm better than you," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But I will fight to protect my daughter." James sneered. "You'll never win, Sarah. I've got the money. The lawyers. You can't outsmart me." A flash of doubt crossed Sarah's mind, but she quickly pushed it away. She couldn't afford to let him win, not after everything they'd been through. "I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe," she said. "No matter the cost." After James left, the weight of the situation hit Sarah like a truck. She stood in the living room, staring at the door, as if she could somehow wish the past few years away. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Mark, her lawyer. "We need to meet soon. This is about to get ugly." The message felt like a punch in the gut. Sarah knew it was coming, but now that it was real, she didn't feel ready. She glanced at Lily, who was playing in the other room, oblivious to the storm that was brewing. It broke Sarah's heart to know that her daughter would soon have to witness the battle for her future. But there was no choice. "I have to do this," Sarah whispered to herself. For her. The next day, Sarah sat across from Mark, her lawyer, at a small cafe. His face was grim as he went over the details of the custody battle. "James is going to pull out all the stops," Mark said, his voice low. "He has a team of high-powered lawyers, and he won't play fair." Sarah's stomach churned. She had known this would be hard, but hearing the reality of it made everything feel so much worse. "I've spent my whole life fighting for my daughter," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "I won't stop now. I just need to know what I'm up against." Mark gave her a sympathetic look. "You're stronger than you think. We'll get through this together." But Sarah wasn't sure. She knew James would stop at nothing to take everything from her. And in that moment, she felt more alone than ever. Sarah's life had always been defined by sacrifice. Every decision, every sleepless night, every job she worked, she did it for her daughter, Lily. But now, as the custody battle began, she realized that this was more than just a fight for her child's future. This was about facing the demons of her past, ones she thought she'd left behind. James, her ex-husband, was ruthless in the courtroom. His lies, his manipulations, he had always been good at wearing a mask. The man who once swore to protect her had now become the man who would destroy everything she had worked for. I can't lose her, Sarah whispered to herself, staring at a picture of Lily. The picture, taken during happier days, was a painful reminder of how much was at stake. But Sarah knew she couldn't let fear dictate her decisions. She had made a promise to herself, and to Lily, that no matter what it took, she would protect her. The first court hearing was a whirlwind. James's lawyer, a man who knew how to twist words, made sure to paint Sarah as an unfit mother. They attacked her character, her financial situation, even her past relationships. Everything was under scrutiny, and Sarah felt every painful word like a knife in her chest. Her lawyer, Mark, a calm and measured man, stood by her, his gaze steady and focused. "Stay strong," he whispered to her. "This is just the beginning." But Sarah couldn't help the doubt that crept in. Was she strong enough for this? Could she really fight someone like James, someone who had the power to destroy everything she held dear? "I won't back down," Sarah said quietly to herself, her grip tightening on Lily's favorite toy. She couldn't afford to. After the hearing, Sarah returned home, her mind spinning. The attack on her character had been relentless, and the questions about her past seemed impossible to answer. She hadn't realized how much she had buried until those words came crashing back. She walked into Lily's room, watching her daughter sleep soundly in her bed. Lily's innocence made Sarah's heart ache. How could she explain all of this to her when she didn't even understand it herself? But in that moment, Sarah knew she couldn't let the past define her. She had to fight for Lily, not just for her child's future, but for her own peace. She couldn't let fear or shame keep her from standing up. "I'll protect you," Sarah whispered, sitting beside Lily. "No matter what." The next day, Sarah received a call that changed everything. Her estranged sister, Claire, who had cut ties with the family years ago, called unexpectedly. "I heard about what's happening with James," Claire said, "and I think I can help." Sarah was shocked. Claire had been distant, choosing her own path long ago, and Sarah had no idea what had brought her back into her life. But Claire's offer was too significant to ignore. "Why now?" Sarah asked, her voice shaky. "Because it's time," Claire replied simply. "I've been watching. I've seen the truth all along." With Claire's help, Sarah would have a fighting chance, but the offer came with a price. To accept it, Sarah would have to confront the past she'd tried to forget. "I'll do whatever it takes," Sarah said. "But I need to know what you're offering, Claire." As the days passed, Sarah weighed her options. Claire's involvement meant reopening old wounds, confronting painful memories, but it also meant gaining an ally who understood the battle she was facing. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that accepting Claire's help would mean sacrificing a part of herself she wasn't ready to give. Her thoughts were interrupted when Lily tugged at her sleeve, asking, "Mommy, why are you so sad?" Sarah knelt down, wiping away the tear that had escaped. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm just thinking." "Don't worry, Mommy. Everything's gonna be okay." Those words, innocent and pure, cut through the uncertainty in Sarah's heart. Lily was right. She had to trust that everything would work out. "I hope so, baby. I really do." The custody battle took a darker turn when James' lawyer presented falsified evidence, a doctored photo of Sarah and Claire, suggesting that Claire had been involved in illegal activity. The manipulation was obvious, but the damage had been done. Sarah felt the walls closing in on her. With every new accusation, her hopes seemed to fade. James' tactics were underhanded, but they were effective. And now, Sarah found herself scrambling to piece together the truth before it was too late. Her lawyer, Mark, was already planning their next steps, but the emotional toll on Sarah was undeniable. "I'll fight for you," Mark reassured her. "But we need to stay focused. This isn't over." But the emotional strain was becoming unbearable. The fear of losing Lily overshadowed everything else. "I can't lose her," Sarah muttered, her voice trembling. "I can't let him win." As Sarah continued to fight, she found herself unraveling emotionally. The pressure, the constant accusations, and the mounting financial strain were beginning to take their toll. She began to question whether she was strong enough to face this battle. It wasn't just about fighting for custody anymore. It was about proving she was enough, proving that she was worthy of her daughter's love. Her ex-husband's cruelty had taken its toll on her confidence, and the walls around her seemed to grow taller with each passing day. But one thing remained unchanged: she would never stop fighting for Lily. "I'll fight for you, no matter what it takes," Sarah whispered to herself, steeling herself for the war ahead. With the hearing drawing closer, Sarah felt the weight of her past pushing against her. The memories she'd long buried, of failed relationships, financial struggles, and the abusive patterns she'd escaped, began to resurface. Her ex-husband's tactics were no accident. He knew exactly where to strike, using her deepest insecurities against her. And as much as Sarah wanted to fight back, the fear of those old wounds being exposed was paralyzing. But the more she tried to bury her past, the stronger the memories became. Sarah realized that in order to move forward, she had to confront them, to take control of her own story. "I won't let him control me," she said to herself. "Not anymore." Claire arrived unexpectedly, standing in the doorway of Sarah's apartment with an unreadable expression. She had the evidence they needed to expose James, but there was something else in her eyes. "I didn't come here just to help you win this," Claire said quietly. "I came because you need to let go of the past. You can't keep running from it. It's time to face it." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She had thought she could protect Lily from everything, her past, her mistakes. But it was clear now that she had to face it all. "I can't do this alone, Claire," Sarah whispered. "You won't have to," Claire replied, walking toward her. "I'll be with you." The days leading up to the final hearing were a blur of preparation and strategy. But even as Sarah worked with her lawyer and Claire, a sense of dread settled over her. She knew that the stakes were higher than ever. But in those quiet moments between preparations, when Sarah looked at Lily, she found the strength to keep going. "I won't stop fighting," Sarah whispered. "Not for you, not for me." She had already given everything. But now, she was ready to give it all one last time to make sure her daughter had a future free from fear. The final court hearing was fast approaching. Sarah's nerves were on edge, but her resolve was unwavering. The pressure had only intensified, and James' lawyer was pushing harder than ever, throwing more accusations and twisting every word she said. Then, one afternoon, Claire dropped a bombshell. "I've been working on something," she said, her voice grave. "I found something about James. Something he's been hiding. It's not just a game to him. There's something deeper here." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Claire hesitated, her eyes darting away before meeting Sarah's gaze again. "He's not just fighting for custody, he's hiding something. Something that could change everything. But if we're going to expose it, we need to be ready. He won't go down without a fight." The truth was out there, but how far would Sarah be willing to go to bring it to light? The truth about James began to surface in fragments. Claire had found old records, financial documents, and even photographs that pointed to a past Sarah had never imagined. James had been involved in shady dealings, using his position to hide his wealth and manipulate situations to his advantage. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Sarah confessed to Mark. "If I expose this, everything changes. I'm not just fighting for custody anymore, I'm fighting a monster." Mark placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and reassuring. "You've already been fighting monsters, Sarah. This is just the next battle. And you are not alone." The weight of what was to come settled over her. Exposing James meant not just winning custody but tearing apart the carefully constructed lies that had kept him safe for so long. With the truth now exposed, Sarah had no choice but to act. The evidence was irrefutable, but confronting James about it wasn't going to be easy. He had always been a master at deflecting blame, spinning situations to his favor. But now, Sarah had the upper hand. "I'm ready," she said quietly, standing in front of the mirror. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman transformed. She wasn't the same scared mother she had been before. "I'm not afraid anymore," Sarah whispered to herself. But when she confronted James, she could see the anger in his eyes, the coldness that had once been a familiar presence in their home. "You think this will change anything?" he sneered, his voice low and threatening. "You'll never win. I'll destroy you and everything you care about." But Sarah stood tall, unwavering. "Not this time." The confrontation between Sarah and James in the courtroom was electric. The air crackled with tension, as each word exchanged was a battle in itself. James tried to twist the truth, but Sarah's evidence was clear. She laid it all out, every document, every photo, every lie he had told. "You thought you could control me forever," Sarah said, her voice steady but filled with unspoken rage. "But you're wrong. This ends now." James' mask cracked for a moment. The smug, self-assured man who had once held all the power was finally revealed for what he was: a liar, a manipulator. And as the courtroom waited in silence, Sarah felt the weight of years of betrayal lift, just slightly. But the fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. The final twist came when Sarah's lawyer presented the last piece of evidence, a recorded conversation between James and one of his associates. The recording exposed a plan to manipulate the system for his own gain. The room was stunned into silence. As the recording played, Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. This was the moment she had been waiting for. It was the moment everything changed. James' face paled as he realized the game was over. The power he had wielded so easily for so long was slipping away. "I'm done with you," Sarah said, her voice resolute. "You've lost." But even as the victory felt sweet, Sarah knew that the battle for her child's future was far from over. There would still be scars to heal, wounds to mend, but she had made it this far, and she wasn't backing down now. The courtroom was a battlefield, the tension in the air palpable as the final hearing began. Sarah stood in the witness box, facing James and his lawyer, both ready to strike. Her heart was racing, but there was something new within her. A calm, a certainty that hadn't been there before. James, ever the manipulator, smiled smugly, his lawyer standing tall beside him. "Sarah may have uncovered some inconvenient truths," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "But that doesn't change the fact that she is an unstable, unfit mother." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. He had no shame, no remorse for the lies he had told, for the manipulation he had used. But she had the truth on her side now. "I've done everything for my daughter," Sarah replied, her voice steady but fierce. "Everything. I won't let you take her away from me." The final battle for Lily's future had begun, and Sarah was ready to fight with every ounce of her being. The confrontation escalated as Sarah and James exchanged words, each statement more biting than the last. But then Sarah did something she hadn't expected. She spoke from the heart, no longer hiding behind legal jargon or evidence. "I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. But there's one thing I'll never do again. I will never let someone like you control me, or my daughter. You can manipulate the truth, but you can't take away the love I have for her. You can take away our bond." The words hit harder than any piece of evidence, and for the first time in the entire hearing, James faltered. His eyes narrowed, and his smirk disappeared, replaced by something more dangerous. But it was too late. Sarah had found her voice. She wasn't going to back down. Not now, not ever. The moment Sarah had been preparing for arrived. James took the stand. His lawyer tried to paint him as the victim, the misunderstood father fighting for his child. But every word he spoke only dug his grave deeper. The lies he had told were laid bare for all to see. His carefully crafted story unraveled, and the truth became undeniable. Sarah's evidence, Claire's revelations, and the recording, it all pointed to the same conclusion. As James began to rant and rave, trying to turn the tables, Sarah remained calm, knowing that the truth was on her side. This was no longer about winning a legal case, it was about winning her daughter's future. And she was prepared to do whatever it took to make sure Lily was safe. The final moments in the courtroom were a blur. The judge's gavel fell with a resounding thud, signaling the end of the hearing. Sarah's heart raced in her chest as the silence in the room stretched on, each second feeling like an eternity. Finally, the judge spoke. After careful consideration of the evidence presented, the court has made its decision. Sarah held her breath as the judge continued. Custody is awarded to Sarah Miller. A wave of relief washed over Sarah, but it was quickly replaced by the weight of everything she had fought for. She had won, but the cost had been high. The scars from this battle would stay with her forever, but she had done what she had to do. She had protected her daughter. As she turned to leave, Lily's smiling face filled her thoughts. They were going home. Together. Walking out of the courtroom, Sarah felt a sense of exhaustion that settled deep into her bones. The emotional toll of the battle, the sleepless nights, the fear, everything had come to an end. But there was still a long road ahead. As she stepped outside into the fresh air, she took a deep breath. The sun was setting on a new chapter of her life, and for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt hope. I did it, she whispered to herself. I protected her. Lily ran toward her, and in that moment, all the pain, all the struggle, faded away. They were together, and nothing could break that bond. The days following the court ruling were a whirlwind. Sarah and Lily moved into their new life, one that was now theirs to shape. The constant fear that had gripped her for so long had finally loosened its hold. But the scars, emotional and physical, were still fresh. The house felt quieter now, without the chaos of legal battles and tense confrontations. Sarah found herself sitting on the couch, holding Lily's hand, wondering if she would ever truly feel at peace. I'm glad we're home, Lily said, her small voice breaking Sarah from her thoughts. Me too, sweetie, Sarah replied, her voice softer than usual. Me too. But as the days passed, Sarah knew that the healing process would take time. The victory in the courtroom was just one chapter. The real work, finding peace and moving forward, was only beginning. Weeks passed, and Sarah adjusted to her new routine. She returned to work, juggling her responsibilities as a single mother and a professional. Each day was a balancing act, but she was finally starting to feel like herself again. One evening, as she tucked Lily into bed, Sarah realized just how far they had come. The nightmares that once plagued her were beginning to fade, replaced by quiet moments of peace. Good night, Mommy, Lily said, her eyes closing sleepily. Good night, my love, Sarah whispered, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. I love you. The weight of the past was still there, but Sarah could see the possibility of a future where she and Lily could heal together. The phone call came unexpectedly. It was from Mark, her lawyer, who had stood by her throughout the custody battle. Sarah, I just wanted to check in, he said. I know things have been hard, but I want you to know that you've done something incredible. You've fought for your daughter, and you've won. Sarah paused, the weight of his words sinking in. I never thought I'd make it this far, she replied quietly. You did, Mark said, his voice full of pride. You made sure Lily's future is secure. But remember, the work isn't over. Take your time to heal, you've earned it. Sarah felt the burden lift a little, knowing that she wasn't alone. With Mark's encouragement, she knew she could move forward, but it would be on her terms, no longer held hostage by fear. The following months were a slow process of rebuilding. Sarah focused on herself and Lily, and the bond between them grew even stronger. Sarah learned to trust again, both in herself and in the people around her. One evening, Sarah sat on the porch, looking out at the stars with Lily beside her. I want to go to school tomorrow, Mommy, Lily said, her voice filled with excitement. You will, sweetheart. You'll go to school and make so many friends, Sarah replied, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. As the night grew darker, Sarah felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long while, she could imagine a future that wasn't defined by fear or loss, but by hope. The final moment of reflection came when Sarah visited the courthouse one last time. Standing in front of the building, she realized how far she had come. The woman who had once walked in fear now stood tall, unshaken. She had won the battle. But more than that, she had found the courage to stand up for herself and her daughter. "I did it," Sarah whispered to herself. "I kept my promise. I protected her." As she turned to walk away, she knew that the future wasn't just about surviving, it was about thriving. And this time, she would do it on her own terms. With Lily by her side, Sarah was ready for whatever came next. It had been months since the final court ruling. Sarah's life, once consumed by chaos and fear, had settled into something unrecognizable. A life of peace, routine, and even joy. She still faced challenges, of course, but now they didn't feel like insurmountable obstacles. As she stood in the kitchen one evening, cooking dinner for Lily, she realized how far she had come. The woman who had once been terrified of the future was now confident in her ability to shape it. Lily ran into the kitchen, her face lit with excitement. "Mom, guess what? I made a new friend at school today." "That's wonderful, baby," Sarah replied, turning to smile at her daughter. Lily's innocence and joy were contagious, and in that moment, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for everything they had fought for. They had found their new beginning together. It wasn't just Sarah who had healed. Lily had blossomed, her fears replaced with a sense of security and happiness. Sarah watched her daughter grow with pride, seeing glimpses of the strong, resilient woman she would become. "Mommy, I love you," Lily said one evening, climbing into Sarah's lap after dinner. "I love you too, sweetie," Sarah whispered, hugging her tightly. For a moment, Sarah felt her heart swell with joy and contentment. She had fought to protect this, her daughter, her family. The battles had been hard, but the love they shared made every sacrifice worth it. Sarah's phone buzzed late one evening, a message from Claire. "I'm proud of you," the text read. "You did it. And you didn't just protect your daughter, you protected yourself." Sarah smiled softly. She had come to realize that the journey wasn't just about saving Lily. It was about finding her own strength. She had been broken, but she had rebuilt herself, piece by piece. She looked at Lily sleeping peacefully beside her, and in that moment, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had chosen family over fear, and it had led her to this. A life worth living, filled with hope and love. As Sarah looked back on everything, the betrayal, the struggles, the fight for her daughter's future, she realized that she had come out stronger. The scars from the past were still there, but they didn't define her anymore. She was in control of her life, her choices, and her future. Sitting at the kitchen table, she glanced over at Lily, who was reading quietly. She had the strength to protect this little world they had created. No one could take it away from her. "I'm proud of you," Sarah whispered to herself, a promise she made to the woman she had become. The journey wasn't over. The future still held uncertainties. But Sarah knew one thing for sure. As long as she had Lily, she could face anything. The final moment of reflection came as Sarah and Lily walked together through the park on a crisp, sunny afternoon. They were no longer burdened by the weight of their past. The air was fresh, filled with the sounds of life all around them, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt truly free. She looked down at her daughter, who was laughing and running ahead, full of life and possibility. And as she watched Lily, Sarah couldn't help but smile. This was it, the life they had fought for. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah believed that everything would be okay. "We're stronger now," she whispered to herself as they continued walking, the future stretching out before them, full of endless possibilities.